taking a critical look at the gaming news of the week. This is Augmented Reality, presented by the Triple S League.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Augmented Reality podcast for January 8th, 2019. It's the Tuesday edition of the show. My name is Ashenity, and I'm here as always with the Cybsidian, local brain in a jar, Cybsidian, font of all sorts of useful and useless knowledge. And welcome to everybody who's already active in the live chat. If you're listening live today, please say hello and send us your questions and comments there as well. We'll read and respond to as many as we can throughout the podcast. It's been a bit of a slow news week, but we have got some what I think will be interesting things to discuss with you. We've got the new Alien game announced for mobile, and we've got, of course, some highly anticipated games that are coming out in 2019, and we were kind of speculating beforehand, what if they release around the same time? What will happen there? So we're going to get into that as well. So, and also don't forget to slam that like button and to tell us and YouTube that you appreciate this content. If you're listening after the fact on one of the audio-only platforms, we're glad you're here as well, and we appreciate your likes and follows. It does take us a day or two to get the podcast up on the audio platform, so if you want to get the latest info sooner, we encourage you to hit the link in the description and subscribe to the Triple S League YouTube channel. In the chat today, we've got Sword Sister jumping right in. We've got Droblet, Cock Locked, and Ready to Roll. Whisper 803, we are doing well. Thanks for asking. Hello, Dark Hollow, Blunt Man, and Tulum Telez, and everybody else who's listening, whether you're in the chat or if you're just lurking in the background, we welcome you here to talk about all of the stuff we love to talk about, which is games and nerdy things. So hopefully that's what you're here for. If you were expecting a cooking show or makeup tips, you're in the wrong place. Just saying. So
we're gonna be doing some cooking stuff in the near future.
We're hoping to. We've been saying that for a long time, and it somehow never materializes.
It's hard. It's hard to cook though when you can't walk. So I'm just throwing that out there. So I mean, now that I can walk, we should be able to do some cooking. So.
So what have you been up to, Cybsidian? You've been
I've been testing a whole bunch of games. We have been working closely with a small indie studio on an upcoming game, and we are very, very, very we're really what's the word? We're really excited to be working with this, and we're just ironing out some last details. But we should have some news soonish on that, and that would be nice, because it's one of these like projects that I've been meandering about for a little bit now, and it's really exciting. So other than that, it's really slow. It's of course January, so everything is slow. Everything is painstakingly slow and boring and dumb, and that's just the way things are.
Speaking of slow and boring and dumb, game companies are doing things. See what I did there?
Oh, yeah.
Actually, first, whole bunch more hellos in the chat. Boston George says, I love this channel. Read Leo9. Hey, y'all, been listening lately. Like y'all's approach. Thank you very much. Captain C gives us a thumbs up. Rob Recht says hi. And Lawrence Brown with the sup $sign. So, thanks, everybody. All right, so when are they going to learn? That is the question, I think, of 2019. When are they going to freaking learn? So, Alien Isolation was one of the greatest survival horror games of all time, I'm told. I have not played it myself. But, I mean, it's got rave reviews, and it's got, people still are talking about it, saying it's a fantastic game. The sequel was announced, was it yesterday? Yeah, it was yesterday. Sequel announced for... drum roll, please. Mobile. Hooray! Because apparently they didn't learn anything from watching the BlizzCon coverage this past year. So another another game in a much beloved franchise has been announced for mobile, and I think, I'm gonna let Cyb chime in and sort of run with this, but I mean, I think one of the biggest problems here is it's being talked about as it was announced as a sequel to Alien Isolation.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's possible to do a mobile spin-off game for your franchise and do it right. We saw, of course, Fallout Shelter was one of the best examples of this. Bethesda really did that right. Remember back when Bethesda was doing things right? Way back in 2015? Yeah. So, Bethesda... oh, man. I just said the name of the game, and now I forget. Fallout Shelter, that's what it is. So Fallout Shelter, that was done right. Popular game, tie-in with a big AAA release that they were doing, and... it worked. It really worked. Now we've got companies that are trying to put out main release titles for their franchises out on mobile platforms, and it just doesn't seem to be working. This new Alien game is called Alien Blackout, and the comments are just ripping it to shreds. Comments on articles and on trailers, and the trailers on YouTube are just getting downvoted like crazy. Like insanely. When I checked yesterday, there was 100 and some thumbs up and thousands of dislikes. So, yeah, read in the chat. Says still playing Fallout Shelter. It's simple fun, and that's what a mobile game is supposed to be. I mean,
yeah, and it's also not supposed to be like pay through the teeth, pay to win, which the vast majority of them are. Let's be real. There's this one game that I've been kind of messing around with recently. They have this rule that they've imposed upon themselves that rare means rare, and everybody should have a really hard time getting the best units in the game, because that's where the challenge is and the fun is and all that. So you can't you can't buy the champions with real world cash. Oh yeah, you can, but it's like really super expensive. So you're just encouraging people to spend tons of money.
There are there are those whales out there that are going to do that. They know that.
Yeah, super whales. Yeah, no kidding.
Super whale.
And it's just annoying and stupid to see that this is that it works. As much as we are saying that the community is really spitting on this game, the new Alien game, they're trashing it. They're dumping on it. They're saying that they won't play it. They're saying that they're done with the company, and yet still, depending on the success of when it goes to mobile, because the majority of people who play mobile games don't even look at other games. Like this I talked to somebody who was like exclusively a mobile gamer, and it was like, so you don't even do you even look at like PC games or console games? And he says, no, not at all. And I'm like, how much are you spending on games? Like, how much do you think you're spending versus the people who buy other games? This is, well, a console and a couple new video games is like, $800. So if I'm spending like $800, every couple months, that seems fine to me. I'm like, wait, wow, you think console gamers are spending $800 a month? Well, they have to get the new console like every other I'm like, how many consoles do you think they buy a year? Like in a year, how many consoles do you think they're buying at like $300 or $400 or $500, $600? It's like 2 or 3. I'm like, no wonder this works.
Yeah,
it's frighteningly scary the way that some people are just like, that's totally okay. I'm totally okay with just getting absolutely trashed on for no apparent reason. It's like, yeah, that's
yeah. So as far as the game itself, it looks like, I mean, it looks, I don't know how they're gonna pull it off. Like, Alien Isolation it's supposed to be a super immersive, tense horror experience. I don't know how you're gonna pull that off on mobile unless you've really got somebody sitting in the dark with their headphones playing it on maybe a tablet. But if you're playing it on your phone, I don't see how you're going to pull off that kind of an atmospheric experience. Plus, of course, as we're used to from mobile titles, I mean, can we anticipate that this is going to be a microtransaction riddled kind of a thing?
Well, I saw some of the comments, and it's like, oh yeah, I can't wait to be dodging aliens, and then going between that and texting my Uber driver. It's like, it's like, and can you imagine? Speaking of the Uber situation, can you imagine that there's a person in the back of your car, and you're hearing some kind of like eerie, like quiet sound, and you're hearing like this like skittering kind of thing like here and there, and you're like, what the hell is that? And then suddenly the person starts screaming bloody murder, and there's this like hissing, like and you're like, what are you doing back there? Like, oh, sorry, I was just playing a game. It's like, really? Really? I mean, I guess kind of what they're thinking is that maybe people will be playing this in their bedroom or something while they're trying to go to sleep or something, and the atmosphere will be more scary, and while they're playing on a damn phone, and then they're getting updates about their cousin's wedding or something like it's completely beyond me. I don't think that this is going to do well, but again, it's like I'm always shocked at the way that these mobile games can rake in the cash, like just rake in the cash. And so it's crazy.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Anyway, there's a lot of people commenting that they didn't, of course, learn from the Diablo Immortal fiasco. Now, to be fair, this was probably planned out long before BlizzCon. That they haven't made this game since BlizzCon, obviously, but still, that might have been a time to put the brakes on and say, what is? Maybe we should reevaluate what we're doing with this, because this is clearly not what the market wants.
Yeah, anyway, well, you think that a lot of these companies would go. You think a lot of these people would kind of slow down and go, maybe this is not a great idea. So I mean I don't really.
Yeah, sorry everybody, we're a little distracted by something that's going on in the background here. So apologize for.
Yeah, we might get Mad Queen in here right away. But I keep wanting to say that this is as far as the whole situation will go. And then it turns out that no, it can go much worse. Sorry about that. Oh my goodness.
All right. Well, you figure out things with Mad Queen there. I'm going to read through some of these chat comments we've got. Dark Hollow says, I doubt they even saw the Diablo Immortal backlash. That's very possible. They either didn't see it, they weren't able to put the brakes on to change anything, or they just didn't care, because they know, like Cyb said, this game is probably going to make money, and that's the sad thing about it. That's why we are going to keep seeing more and more of these things. I mean, we've been complaining about microtransactions forever, and yet they just still keep coming. They take great games and then dumb them down for mobile so that they can add microtransactions in. Now, that doesn't mean that this is going to be a bad game. Alien Blackout, it might be a great game. It looks like it's about like remotely controlling your crew as they do things in a space station or something. Could be really fun. Just as a sequel to a massive AAA title that was very well received and very well reviewed. It just doesn't seem like the best treatment of the franchise IP, right? Blunt Man says,
"Yeah,
this channel is the best news source." Well, thank you so much.
Well, we do have some news coming. We do have some news coming, and we have the Mad Queen. Hello, Mad Queen.
How's it going?
Greetings, Links. I was battling with Discord, and also I believe that you already noticed that something is going on with the chat here on YouTube.
Something's going on with the chat?
Yes.
Yeah. It's being spotty. It's going in and out for disconnects. Even I'm like disconnecting and reconnecting.
Oh, okay.
I wanted to add something to what you were discussing before about mobile games. I would like to remind you that CD Projekt some months ago, I believe 5 months ago, bought the mobile company Spoko. allegedly to do a mobile game around Cyberpunk 2077, which was something more or less predictable that they were going to do so.
Right.
Yep.
And people is complaining about what happened with the Diablo fiasco. And it was a fiasco, yeah. Obviously, everybody expects the games for mobile to be cash-grabbing machines filled with microtransactions, but the truth is that I believe that in here the point is how you present the thing. Everything is pure marketing. That's why the people loved this Fallout Shelter game, and they hated the Diablo game because it's the same type of game, and they have the same goal in mind, which is make money. But the Fallout game, it was introduced a very different way. They introduced it like, okay, here you have Fallout 4, and you're going to need to wait some months to have it. Just because we think of you and we don't want you to get bored, we have this magnificent mobile game for you to play meanwhile you wait. And I believe that this is a very different approach from, hey, you wanted a new Diablo? Well, I'm sorry, you're only going to have a mobile game.
Yeah, if you imagine that they had come out and said, "Here's our next great Fallout game. This is the next game in the series, Fallout Shelter." Like they would have been run out of town on a rail. Do you remember Super Mario Run? It was a game came out a couple years ago. A little Mario game for your phone, right? That worked as well. People were playing it. It's just a little thing you can play in your in your spare time while you're relaxing. If Nintendo had come out and said, "This is the new game in the Mario series," this is.
Fans would have rioted.
We're not doing, a full platformer or whether 2D or 3D. We're not doing any of that. We're the future of Mario is mobile. Damn it. Yeah.
Yes, I believe that these types of free-to-play games need to have, the push of a AAA game, because it's not only mobile games. We've seen other examples of games that didn't work that were based on a very successful universe, like it was the case with Thronebreaker, The Witcher, a game that is set in the Witcher universe. And I am sure if they would have made a Witcher 4, which I don't know if it's going to happen. I'm sure that if they would have used this Witcher 4 push, they would have sold Thronebreaker a lot more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very true. Yeah, having a tie into to a big AAA title, that is an excellent way to go with it.
Yeah. Well, it's like when you're doing releases, and I know that companies are starting to realize this. It was a talking point a couple of years ago at one of the GDCs. It's like when you're putting out a mobile game, you have to put it out as close to your a main like AAA tie-in if you want it to be like really, really, really successful. Because when you do a mobile game that is a little bit like it's connected to one of your series, if you're not putting it out near one of your other releases, then it's usually gamers take breaks from various things. They even take breaks from genres. So that's why when you have too many genres released in a crowded field, they don't always do that great. You'll only have one or two successes, and then everything else is kind of put through the ringer, so to speak. So I think that's part of the issue, and that's part of the idea that some of these companies have, is that they think that their game will do well regardless, and they think that the game will do well in spite of what they're doing to kind of screw things up. And
well, the thing is that mobile games are very successful, and it also depends on the kind of, geographically speaking, the kind of market that you're looking for. Because, for instance, in China, mobile games are way bigger than in Europe and America. And I believe that lots of times they have in mind these markets, while, for instance, what happened with Diablo, maybe they had a lot of backlash, but then in China it sells a lot. Sometimes the backlash has nothing to do with the numbers.
Yeah, and I mean that's been clear for a while now. It's like it's ridiculously insane to see and to see how much, like, in some cases companies are willing to do the risk. Like, look at Konami. Konami tried to go in the whole mobile slash pachinko, is that what they're called? Yeah, pachinko machines route, and they did really good for like the first year or two, and then then their profits have tanked, and now they're going, so we're thinking about getting back into, like, AAA titles, and we're looking to hire people. Turns out that when you spit on one of the industry's most cherished creators, and you go entirely this aggressive monetization, this really aggressive, like, what's the word that people use? Like, this aggressive, like, marketing towards people who they clearly have problems when it comes
predatory?
To gambling. Yeah, like the super predatory gambling kind of things. It's like, yeah, it turns out you lose most of your audience pretty quickly. And the only people that you're milking is the people who are your fans, who are susceptible to predatory marketing strategies or microtransactions, and they only last so long before they burn out. Like, it's
yeah, even whales only have so much.
Well, I think I've talked about this before. It's like one of the things that we discovered in the past was that there are a handful of whales who they'll keep putting money in, but then they'll get to this one point where they just stop cold turkey and they go to a different game. And they're trying, and what's disgusting is that at some of these conferences and at some of these companies, there's specialists trying to figure out how exactly they can milk whales longer and get more of their money. It's like, how do we prevent a whale from, like, leaving our ocean and going to somebody else's? It's like we know that this is an issue, and how can we use predatory microtransactions to the best of our abilities, while at the same time making sure that we cut down on the straight up impact that we have on some of on the threshold limit that some people have. It's like, how can we be predators but only be predators so much? It's like, my goodness, you're
the gaming industry in current year, folks.
Well, it's not just that. Well, I mean, it's like imagine sitting around a table where it's your job is to figure out how to separate people from their wallets as much as possible. What kind of a person does that make you become after doing that for years and years and years? It's like, are you what do you do for work? Oh, I figure out the best way to take advantage of people.
No, they'd call themselves a game industry analyst.
The thing is that we can find a lot of predatory practices in games that have been very successful. Because, for instance, what happened recently with Assassin's Creed Odyssey and how they created a leveling up system that was incredibly slow, so you needed to buy the XP boost to be able to play at a reasonable pace. And this didn't bring the amount of backlash that I was expecting from the community after what happened with Battlefront.
That is surprising. I hadn't even heard of this, actually.
And yes, and it was more or less everywhere for only a couple of days. And I've seen worse complaints when some studied the code for Fallout 76 and they found out that the perk cards were attached to loot boxes originally. And they complained more about Bethesda's intention to do that and then change their minds than Ubisoft doing that on Assassin's Creed. I mean, Ubisoft.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. It's like, okay, where's the hate and anger over the fact that microtransactions, really aggressive ones, which we have a hilarious video coming out for shortly, in Activision's game, but they didn't launch the game with with those microtransactions. The game launched with 0 microtransactions. Then they added it to it later, and they're even charging you for, like we talked about this last week, and this is what the little video clip that we got working on is going to be about. It's charging you for a red dot. It's like, at what point do you say no? Enough is enough. Like, I mean, really, like, this is disgusting on an it's a whole new level of disgusting.
Well, the outrage only goes so far. Really,
Apparently.
The only thing that counts is your dollars, voting with your wallet. And that, I think, is probably going to be a common theme for 2019, is the importance of that, of not supporting these kinds of things. If you don't believe in this kind of things...
Well, the problem about that is that not everybody is as well informed. I mean, when we talk about games that they are not so well known, most people that play them are really into video games. But for these AAA games that are massive, that the market for them is people that don't play constantly video games. They don't watch video game news, and they don't know what they are going to find inside the game. That's what the situation they take advantage is that people don't know what they're going to find, and they trust the companies to keep some level of ethics. And before we go on with that, I just wanted to answer a question that's been going on the chat for a while. It has nothing to do with this. Sorry for the interruption. Thronebreaker expansion versus time in Cyberpunk. The teams that the project have for one side Cyberpunk and other side Went, they are different teams. Doing or not doing things for Thronebreaker have nothing to do with the production of Cyberpunk, because you are discussing here like they won't have time. They are completely different teams. Some developers are working on Gwent and Thronebreaker, and different people is working on Cyberpunk. So I believe the possible Thronebreaker expansions have something more to do with the fact that the game didn't do very well in sales than with the amount of people that is on the team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see.
Gambling casinos have standards and regulations of some type. Yeah. Do you guys remember this huge controversy that ended up in nothing about the laws on loot boxes in video games? Yeah. What happened to that?
Well, as far as I know, it's still
building
ongoing.
steam. Yeah, it's building steam right now. Because
actually, it turned out in the Netherlands, there were some of EA's games and probably other games as well. It turned out that some of their loot box systems were illegal under current laws. Like, they didn't even have to change the laws.
Belgium too.
Yeah. So it's, I mean, the wheels
it's
of government turn very slowly. That's the thing.
Yeah, and once they get going, you never want to see where that ends up. But I mean, overall, it's like that's going to set some precedents, and then we'll see kind of where it kind of goes from there. But you know, that is going. Lawrence, actually, in chat, you make a good point. There are a lot of regulations to casinos, to gambling in casinos. There are certain amounts of pay rates that they have to do. If a casino is found like playing with rigged decks, like shorting decks and shorting things, if you can, there's inspectors who they walk into casinos and they do tests. There's inspectors who walk in. They will play with the various machines and test them. And if they find out that they've been, tweaked with, and their chances have been like, there's some VLTs that, some people think. Not VLTs. What it's like a VLT. What's the first generation of the VLTs called? Those the things where you pull the arm.
Oh, slot machines.
Yeah. So the slot machine system, by law, they have to have a certain payout rate. Like, they can be anywhere between paying out a very small amount or paying out a lot, and it's up to the casino owner. But there is a law that says, in the vast majority of countries, that says the machine has to pay out at some point. Like, there has to be a payout for it. Now, I worked at a place when I was a kid where the owner would keep an eye on the machine, and when if the machine went like a whole 2 days without paying out, what they do is they'd like, after the shop was closed, they'd sit there and they'd play it until it paid out, and they would make an extra like $4 to $5 grand every month by doing this. And that, under certain places, certain laws, is illegal, but it's not strictly like enforced as much. Whereas making the machine not pay out and just pocketing all of the money and not playing the machine, to play the odds on the machine, that is more illegal than, having your friend or your brother or something like that play the machine that you've been watching, play out, and then you, after hours, you just play it until it pays out. So that's kind of the situation that we're looking at here, is that there's rules and laws that affect gambling that do not affect in any way, shape, or form loot boxes or anything else.
The great difference is that in gambling, what you gamble is money, and what you have in exchange is money. But in terms of legal regulations, the problem with video games is that you gamble money, but you have things in exchange that are not money. The great problem is there are lots of regulations on how odds should work, but personally, I believe that the worst problem is that you can find loot boxes in games that are targeted for kids.
Yeah,
I believe that is really worse, because amongst other things, this type of predatory practices produce gambling addiction in kids. So I believe that the regulations should start with not allowing these practices in games for kids and then move forward.
Well, and we talked about this before. It's like, we're not a fan of regulation in general, but there are some things that you need to put into regulation. Like, you can't have kids playing games that are designed and created to create gambling addicts. Like, if somebody is gonna, as an adult, they're gonna learn how to gamble, and they're gonna gamble away their everything, that's on them. That they're an adult, they make that choice. But essentially, because a lot of this stuff really does come down to a type of brainwashing. It's not like, it's not like official brainwashing or like any like crazy conspiracy, Alex. But what it is it's such an unhealthy behavior that it's universally shunned as a terrible thing to do. That's the kind of stuff we're talking about. And that's the kind of thing that we're mentioning, is like, look, if this doesn't happen this way, if this gets out of control, I think we talked about it a little while ago, is what you're going to end up having down the road is you're going to end up having government-run gaming companies, and you're going to have like, this just like you have now with a lot of the gambling industries, is you're going to have this gambling industry that's run by bureaucrats, and that's why you have, that's why, lottery tickets are so prominent today, and I read about the last Powerball in the States. Some guy sold his house, sold his property, sold a bunch of stuff that he had owned. Oh, it's okay. And then he got together like $500,000 in cold hard cash, put it all into the Powerball, and he won about $4,000. It's like, wow. That was a horrendously terrible decision, but that's different than going into schools or going into, into kids' private time and teaching them, how to gamble on things that are designed to make the majority of people fail. It's like when you're dealing with an odd, there was one mobile game a couple of years ago got caught doing this. So they had this special reward and said, people that paid, I think it was about $400 US, which is a lot of money, have the chance at winning this really special item. Turns out that they only had rigged the system to give away 3 items. And after those 3 items were gone, and the advertisement was still there, that they were advertising something that you could never win. After those first 3 items went out the door, there was no way, shape, or form that you could win that, and that was not within the terms of service or within the contest notification. And that's illegal even as far as Google goes. So Google Play ended up clamping down on this game, saying, "Hey, big warning! They fined them. They took away a bunch of their money, and they gave the money back to any of the players that asked, who said, 'Hey, I bought one of these packs. I want my money back,' because this came out in their forums, and one of the people at the company basically confirmed it. It was like, well." The reason why you're not seeing anybody win it is because there's only 3 of them available, and they were all won in the first day. It's like, what? And so everybody like basically screen grabbed that because they deleted it right away because they realized that they just gave away, that they had lied to the public, and that they had been in violation of Google's own policies, and that ended up crushing their game. So, yeah.
So it does work to some extent.
Yeah, so well, but the fact that they got there and thought that was totally an okay thing to do is completely unacceptable.
Right. It's like they'll try to get out. They'll try to get away with anything that they can.
Yeah.
The only language these people speak is dollars or euros or wherever you live, money, and that's why I say it's so important to vote with your wallet. I mean, will this ever go away permanently? Probably not. But if we're willing to support good companies that don't participate in these kinds of disgusting practices and just ignore everybody else, and if everybody who is making news online, YouTube gaming channels and stuff, if the only games that are getting coverage are games that have good monetary practices and aren't predatory, hopefully that'll make an impact. It might take a couple of years, but I'm hoping it'll make an impact. But we did see in 2018, we saw with EA, or was it 2017, with the Battlefront 2 issue, we
17, I believe.
Was it? Yeah, it was a long time ago now.
Yes.
That.
But I think that
wasn't
enough.
There.
That's yes and no. Something that enrages me and triggers me a lot is seeing how sometimes the backlash and all the hate goes to one direction and they forget about other things, like what I was telling before. They did that with Battlefront and no one accepted that, and then they did it with Assassin's Creed Odyssey and it was okie dokie.
Well, they obviously slipped it in a more subtle, sly way with Assassin's Creed Odyssey.
They still got crap for it, but not as much crap as I was expecting them to get.
If I had actually picked up the game,
very little crap.
Also, haha, Mad Queen, you said One Direction, haha. Yeah. Anyways, we've kind of gone around on this.
Yeah, well, we won't talk this to death anymore, but
we should talk about more cheerful things than microtransactions.
Absolutely. Well, there's
something that's cheerful. It's coming out soonish. Is these 2 games? I don't know if you've heard about these things. One's called The Outer Worlds, and the other one's called Cyber. Am I saying that right? Cyberpunk 20. Is it 2077? I think. Yeah.
I was gonna say don't say 76.
It was 2020.
Just don't, whatever you do, don't say Cyberpunk 76. That.
Yeah. So of course we're being horribly facetious. So this is shaping up at the moment to be the big contenders for Game of the Year this year, and I'm saying that because we've been hearing yet again, it's kind of a bit of a rehash in the news, but just in case you missed it, there was an analyst who came out who said most likely this game was that Cyberpunk 2077 was going to drop in 2019. I would personally like to extend a hand to this particular analyst and say welcome to the club. I've been saying this for the last 2 years, so good for you. But yeah, this is hitting the news again, that again we're expecting to see this game come out this year. So between Cyberpunk 2077 and The Outer Worlds, which is your guys' favorite to win this? And I mean,
do we have a release date for The Outer Worlds?
Yeah, it's coming out this year for sure. unless some freak accident happens.
I mean, anything can happen, but they've scheduled it for 2019, and
yeah, they haven't set a date yet. They have not set a date yet, but there is still a small possibility because they're still polishing it up and getting it ready to ship. And there is a small possibility that we will see this game before the summer. So within
Outer Worlds.
Outer Worlds. There's a good possibility we will see it before June. Not a good one. Sorry. There's a moderate chance, I'd say about 40%, that we'd see it before June. Still, like, potentially a really good chance that it's going to get out then. But most likely it will drop sometime after July. So that's kind of where we're sitting at the moment.
Well, I really don't know about the exact state of the production of the Outer Worlds, but the truth is that taking a look at the state of the marketing, I would say around fall. Yes. I can be wrong because I really don't know how advanced the game is, but for the state of the marketing, for the point they are on marketing, I would say fall.
Yeah, this is coming from my inside sources at Obsidian. So
well, in this case, they probably know it better than I do.
But let's say,
I agree with you that the marketing as it stands right now. So we have YouTube ads still rolling quite frequently on the Outer Worlds. The trailer that we saw at Game Awards has been continually making its rounds. It's even up a little bit in January because January is cheap for, like, really, really cheap for advertising. If you want to advertise something, you can often get like double or triple the amount that your ad is being shown for the same price, or even a little bit less. So that's something that's really, really good. And that also means that we're looking at right now they're trying to get as many people talking about it and signing up for information and I mean, getting channels like us to talk about it and getting more and more people hyped for it. They've been wanting to do that while they continue to work on the game. So right now marketing kind of says fall ish, but there is a chance that if they could do it, and I have to reiterate this, every day that passes that we don't hear anything is more of an indication that it will definitely be a fall release. And what I mean by that, because that's kind of something that you can say about anything, what I mean by that, directly speaking, is if we don't hear more news by the end of February, if we don't see a new trailer, or if we don't see some kind of heavy movement in social media, then it will definitely be until Q4, November probably. So if that's the case, October, November, if we don't see anything by the end of February, don't hold your breath. It's not coming before summer. That's more or less kind of where it puts it out at.
All right, but if it comes out,
I saw the gameplay. I saw the gameplay, and I couldn't help but think. But the Outer Worlds is a mix between Fallout, New Vegas, and BioShock, and Borderlands. It's like they didn't want to pay for the license for all the games, and they thought, okay, what do people like? What they want us to do? Fallout, New Vegas.
It's interesting you say this because I don't know if you know, but all of the people who have been on the team, like people that, not all of the people, but people on all of the teams for those games that you just listed off are people who are now working on this game. So there are some people from
that.
each of those companies that are now working on this. So, and it would be nice if they could get it could be really nice if they could get Chris Avalon in and do some more work on stuff there. But don't hold your breath on that because that's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. But
I don't know what he's working on right now, to be honest. And no, actually, he can't stand Obsidian, so I didn't say anything at all.
So we're getting some comments in the chat about how it not quite fair to compare the two, Outer Worlds and Cyberpunk, and
yes,
don't pit them against each other, that kind of a thing. Which is, I mean, which is a fair criticism. I mean, Cyberpunk is a AAA budget game. Outer Worlds is not. Outer Worlds is made by.
We've mentioned this before.
Yeah, we've talked about this before, but some of the distinctions between them. I mean, there's some overlap in the genre, but they're both sci-fi, obviously, but Cyberpunk is, of course, its own established genre. Outer Worlds is going for like sort of a Fallout-esque Bioshock Borderlands kind of a thing, as Macklin said.
I believe it's Biopunk, but I'm not sure. I see more of it.
Oh man, there's a name for that. There is a name for this kind of thing, and it ends in punk, but it's slipping my mind what it actually is.
Biopunk.
Biopunk? Okay.
Bioshock is Biopunk.
Biopunk, but then mixed in with the sort of retro-futurism of Fallout kind of a thing. But
I'm a little afraid that the problem that this game may have is that people is expecting a game as big as Fallout New Vegas, and they already said that it's going to be a little more modest than New Vegas. I believe that there's a lot of people that are expecting that the Outer Worlds fills the gap that of this game that everybody wants called Fallout New Vegas 2. And they may get disappointed if they don't have it.
That could be. And I think that the developers were trying to sort of temper that when they put out a post saying, just remember, we're not working with a AAA budget here, so we're making this game, and it doesn't look like it's going to be fantastic, but yeah, we can't expect it to be, of the scale of, say, Fallout 4 or Cyberpunk or The Witcher even,
Well, I don't know you, but at one point when I was playing The Witcher 3, there was one point I said, well, isn't this game going to end? There are more things that I want to play. This is so fucking long. So long.
Yeah, well, it's huge. Games are getting so huge now. Plus,
yes, in one hand you want it to end, quote unquote, because you want to play more things, but on the other side it's like, I don't want it to never end, but I want to play Horizon Zero Dawn, but I don't want it to end. So you are like in between, like you don't want to.
Well,
you don't want to live the very little social life you have.
I don't know if I'm weird in that way, but I just play. I will play a game, every day for weeks, and then I'll just be done with it. Sometimes before I'm done the main story. I'm kind of strange that way. I'll get distracted by something, or just be like, oh, I don't feel like playing it today, and then not go back to it. And my dog just won't stop scratching in the background here, so I hope that it's not coming through. Hey, settle down, you.
It's not. Well, I don't do that. If I start a game, I shall finish it. If I don't, it's because I didn't like the game, not because I got distracted. There are games that I started and either I don't like it or I can't play it because there are games that I couldn't finish. But usually I start a game and then I finish them. Yeah, Alien Isolation is one game that I couldn't finish, and I'm so pissed because I love Alien.
Yeah, Witcher 3 I have not finished yet either, but that was mostly because I picked it up, a few years after it had come out, and there was just so much else to play, especially with, my work with the channel here. But yeah, so I have not finished, even though I really. There are times when I'm like, oh, I want to dive back into it and see what happened with this character, that character, blah blah blah. But anyway, so
one of the things that I've been doing in the winter here is I've been binging on certain content, trying to catch up on stuff. One of the things I've binged on, which I was really surprised that I ended up binging on, is I have binged on the entire Universal lore. Mostly related to the comics and a lot relating to the expanded universe of the entire Alien / Predator series, which I was like, hey, didn't know.
Can you please repeat that, because I lost you a moment of sound and I didn't understand what you said.
I said I've been binging on and have been going over the entire universe lore of the Alien series, and I didn't quite realize that they're actually not necessarily interested in continuing, or they're wanting to continue the series, but they're kind of taking the third movie out of the running, if that makes sense.
As far as the canon.
You mean with the new game?
Yeah. No, not with the new game. I mean, in general, there's a lot of talk about some new movies, and
what
maybe
movie
even the
are you
live
talking about?
series.
Because there are only 3 Alien movies: Alien 1, Alien 2, and Alien 4. There are no more. So I don't know what you're
I see
talking
what you did
about.
there.
I feel the same way about the 5th Die Hard.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So anyways, that's something that was really interesting. It was like, wow, that timing is, because as soon as this info came out, and I saw the trailer yesterday, I think it was the first time that came out, I was like, oh, isn't that kind of curious? Because I just binged like the entire lore of the entire universe, and something that I think has been going around as an idea is like a post the the Earth invasion of with the aliens. That's been kind of going around as an idea for a TV series, and it would kind of follow the kind of like the structure of Game of Thrones in the sense that you're following multiple storylines of multiple characters, and like every season, like one or two major characters are like killed off, and new ones are kind of like always introduced, and you never know who's like you don't know who's going to make it to the end, so to speak, and you have this like bridging story of all of these different characters going on all at the same time, and that's something that really interested me and really perked my ears up, because it was like that is actually a really brilliant move.
No, it's not.
Well,
it will be like the Walking Dead, but with aliens. That ends up being a survival.
I would say The Walking Dead. I'd say it would. I think it's big enough that I think the clout would attract a lot of people. I think what we would see is we'd see it more along the lines of Game of Thrones and a little less like The Walking Dead. The Walking Dead is great.
Yeah, but in Game of Thrones, you have a lot of plot that revolves around politics, which is something that you can't have with aliens.
Oh, you definitely can. I mean, the world's full of like mega corporations and political scheming, and honestly, I think, see, Aliens is the expanded universe. When you look at the expanded universe, you're more likely to be shot in the back of the head by some corporate entity than you are to be killed in the face by an alien with their second mouth jaw thing going into your forehead. It's like
yes, but one thing is the expanded
reality
universe.
Of the world.
Yes, but doing a series based on aliens and doing the whole expanded universe is like I don't think it's going to be attracted by the idea. If they base it on the pen and paper role playing game, I mean, I'm in, because I absolutely adored it, and the Marines. I also loved the second film. That would be great, but I think that an alien series based on the expanded universe of aliens, you need to like it a lot.
Mm-hmm. I'm just going to put a pin in that one. I'm just going to put a pin in that one. We've got to bring this back to talking about Cyberpunk and Outer Worlds here, because we should get back to that.
Before we kill each other.
Before you do that, I would like to point out that I was circling back to that because of the whole corporate over, which is a common theme in both Cyberpunk and in the Outer Worlds. Is big corporate overlords have now bought and sold pretty much everything, and are now selling everything to you at a ridiculously inflated price,
right?
Keeping everybody under heel, so to speak, and that's the other reason why we're doing this like Cyberpunk versus the Outer Worlds thing, is because the you're going to have the enemies of the nature in the wild, and things that you're encountering, whether it's the gangs in Cyberpunk or whether it's the roving monsters and crazy creatures that you're going to encounter in the Outer Worlds. But again, the more dangerous threat is the company who's smiling at you, selling you all their products, and if you cross them, they have somebody who's going to put a bullet, or who's going to try to put a bullet between your eyes. It's like that's the nature of both of these worlds, and that's really cool, because, and again, it's like we're seeing this more and more in gaming. And if I were a mega corporation today, cough cough, EA, I would be quite worried that the prevailing theme of video games right now is people turning on the big overlord companies that are forcing them to do everything that they want them to do, period. And you see this in Cyberpunk 2077. You see this in the Outer Worlds. You're going to see this as a major theme in Borderlands 3. Spoiler alert. you're going to see this as a major factor of a couple other games that are coming out soon. This whole like fight the greedy corporate power is really becoming a prevalent like new storyline, and it's going outside of multiple genres and is kind of bringing everything together. So I'd be really worried if I was a big corporate overlord. I'd be treating my customers with a great deal of respect because you
they
don't
really like those games about fighting the corporate overlords.
Yeah.
If that went beyond video games, I would say you're right, but I don't think so. I don't think that Google needs to be afraid that you're going to kill Arasaka in Cyberpunk.
Probably not. All right, but getting back to sort of comparing and contrasting these two titles, so we've got two very, very highly anticipated games for 2019 here. I would say the hype is probably still larger for Cyberpunk, and if I were going to put my money on which one out of the two would win Game of the Year, I would suspect Cyberpunk if it comes out in 2019. That's where I would put it. But we have two games here who are both promising to be very in-depth RPGs, which is something that the community as a whole has been hungry for. It's what they wanted out of Fallout 76, didn't get, and there's been a lot of anger about that. And I mean, there's lots of other reasons that people were angry about Fallout 76, but I mean, the Outer Worlds kind of showed up right in. I think the timing was perfect as far as when they announced this game. They were.
Yeah, the timing was perfect to show the middle finger to Bethesda.
Yeah, from the. Yeah, there were a couple of subtle little jabs.
Oh, look at me.
In the
Did you see the gameplay?
Yep. Oh yeah.
I found fascinating that in this role-playing part, when you can choose the dialogue, you can choose the stupid option.
Yes.
I love that.
That is.
I think that's hilarious too. I want to talk about this because I'm reminded of it, and I wanted to bring it up a little bit a while ago about Fallout and about the Fallout series. I'm not going to digress too much on this, but it's an interesting thing to note. Because this is tied into both Obsidian and also to Interplay as well. So Bethesda more or less stole the Fallout IP. Like they legitimately did not create it. Anybody who can use Google can figure out that they did not create Fallout 1 and 2. They do not employ anybody, as far as I know, that was on the team from Fallout 1 or 2. And that they at no point have ever claimed to be the original creators. They claim to be the original patent holders, though, which is how shall we say, stupid and ridiculous. Like it's a ridiculous lie that lawyers say to help them win court cases, which they did, which is how they got. Which is what they did to try and win court cases. I need to reiterate this as well. Bethesda took Interplay to court over this whole thing to try and get the rights right around when they published Fallout 3. They realized how impressive and how popular it was, and they wanted to extend their contract. The contract was to make 3 single-player games, and then the rights would revert back to Interplay at the time, and that they were not allowed to make a multiplayer game, and that if they did, the rights would again revert back to Interplay, and they would lose the license, and that was it. So it's interesting to note that they never won a single case. They took it to the first court, and they lost quite heavily because their contract was quite clear. They then took it to court again. They appealed, and they brought it to court again. They lost that one. Then they appealed again, and they took it to the next court. All the while using these drawn-out tactics to cut Interplay off of their financing, to make them stop work on the Fallout multiplayer game that was being worked on back then, which was called Fallout Online, and just progressively doing like dirty tactics and dirty tactics and dirty tactics. They ultimately ended up settling and they paid Interplay about $2.5 to anywhere. I think it was between $2 to $3 million, and then they took the license lock, stock, and barrel, including the rights to the previous games. It is now very interesting to me that they have published 3 Fallout games, and their hold on the series is now in major question because of the backlash on 76. And
well,
that it was the multiplayer. It was a multiplayer game that did this to them, and it's quite ironic that if they had kept with the original deal, right now they wouldn't have had this horrendous thing happen to them with trying to put out this multiplayer game, and they'd still have one more game to make in the series. I find that really, 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 really interesting.
What do you mean by they're losing their hold on the series?
Well, not legally speaking, but
right.
within the eyes of the player base, the players generally are displeased with Bethesda's choice on 76. The gameplay is fun when you're not dealing with bugs. I will say that, and I will hold to that. The gameplay is actually quite fun, discounting the bugs, which are many and too many for me to actually play the game right now. It's too buggy, it's too imbalanced, it's got too many problems. It has so many problems with PvP. It's just a litany of issues.
I find this weird because what the major things that people are complaining about, I don't have a problem with them. Because, for instance, I hardly have bugs. One of these typical bugs that everybody's complaining about, I don't have them. But on the other hand, there are other things that I find quite annoying, like the perks. And I have serious issues with them, and I don't hear anyone complaining. Maybe I'm weird? I don't know.
I have had friends tell me about strange bugs that they're having in the game that I have never heard of, so they can't find solutions for it. It's like they've got a bug tailor-made for you. Every player gets
not for me. I feel like
you get a bug, and you get a bug, and you get a bug, and you get a bug.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
they even correcting things that people legit thought that they were features, not bugs.
Which is decent.
Funny. But they can fix it. I mean, the launch of No Man's Sky was even worse, and at this point, players are more or less happy with the game. So I believe that with 6 months worth of changes, maybe Fallout 76 can launch out to space. And how were the sales? Really bad, right?
No, the sales are actually decent. They
it isn't.
Oh yeah. The sales were a lot better than what a lot of the haters would like to believe. A lot of the haters are saying, "Oh, they sold less than 1 million copies." That's not true. They sold well over 1 million copies. In fact, they sold closer to I think we don't have any concrete numbers on this. This is only going from what I've heard from inside sources, but it seems to lean towards the fact that they have indeed hit pretty darn close to the 3 million mark in sales, which is really good for Bethesda. Like that's really, really good for Bethesda. That's not a small number in any way, shape, or form. And the monthly players throughout the month of December, weekly, so people who logged on at least once a week, at least 4 times within the scope of December, was around just under 1 million players. So there's still nearly 1 million people playing the game. Now, there's a lot of those people who are upset with the game, and there's some people who are logging in just to see whether or not the bugs have been fixed, or whether things have been getting better, or they're just kind of checking back in. But that's still a fairly healthy number. You did not have that with No Man's Sky. No Man's Sky came out and dropped down to, because we could see it on Steam charts and a couple other places at the time, not Xbox and we didn't get perfect numbers for PlayStation either, but but the PC had dropped down to I think the lowest point was 2,000 players or a little less, which for a game that released under its magnitude was an absolute bomb. Was absolutely disgusting. So again, there's lots of people who are hating on it, and I'm critical of it, and we are critical of it. We don't hate 76. We actually find it quite enjoyable. I really like 76 in a lot of ways. I absolutely would have gone back to the drawing board with a lot of things, and I really hope that they get around to adding NPCs, because the story, the way that they're telling it, just doesn't work. I can understand that working in some scenarios. There's this new team game coming out soon. Exactly the same thing. There's no NPC player humans that you can interact with in the world other than your party members. Exact same premise. And it's coming out, and it's not getting the hate or the animosity that some people are dishing out towards Bethesda. So that's, why that's exactly going in that direction, or why there's that discrepancy amongst the players. I don't know. I can't say for sure, but yeah, it just doesn't work here. I can understand why they did it. I understand why they came at it from this angle, why they're attempting to do this. But in all honesty, it's just moronically stupid in overall. It's like I do understand it, but it's at some point, I hope they realize that they really screwed up on this, and they work around adding some NPCs.
I'm sure they know.
I know that they know. And there's some people saying that the studio is in chaos. You see this from all kinds of people that YouTubers that we have worked very closely with, who are saying things like, the company is on fire. There's people threatening to leave, and no, there's not. I have enough contacts within the industry to know that there's been some people that are really upset at the studio, that they're really stressed out. They're having a little bit of a hard time, but nobody's been there's no mass firings, there's no mass walkouts, there's no mass people leaving the company. The Bethesda runs a pretty tight ship, in the sense, they run an immaculately tight ship when it comes to leaks, which actually works for the detriment to their company, because they sometimes they don't get enough feedback from their community before they launch certain titles and certain things. So yeah, that's problematic, incredibly so.
Yeah, but how people like giving the news. Everything is on fire. This is the end of the world. Bethesda is going down. Like, hello, they're going
Bethesda's
to publish.
Going to be, and we've talked about this. I think we talked about this on Saturday. That Bethesda's going to be okay financially.
Totally.
But it's still they've lost a lot of good favor points with the community, including as much. And I tried so hard with Fallout 76, and I did enjoy it a lot when I was playing it, but it just hit a point where I was like, I'm out of stuff to do. The company keeps doing things that annoy me, so it's like
the haters. It's the haters.
Well, it all depends. It all depends, because I played like 250 hours already, and I didn't do a lot. I mean, I just maybe you went directly to the main quests, but the truth is that I've been doing things.
I'm not nearly as into building a wide variety of things like you've been doing. So that's part of it too, is what you enjoy about the game, and how, and there are lots of people obviously who are still enjoying playing it, and that is totally fine. And as soon as more content gets added in, I'll probably be back there with you. But anyway, bringing it back around yet again, so Cyberpunk. Now let's say the scenario that we talked about earlier comes to pass. So we've got the Outer Worlds releasing in November of this year. Hypothetically, I'm not saying that's the release date. Just to be clear. Just to be clear. Let's say
there can always be emergencies.
Let us say that the Outer Worlds releases near the end of 2019, and Cyberpunk also is releasing in that same sort of time window. So if they're coming out within a month or a couple months of each other, what is that going to mean? Does the Outer Worlds have a potential to take a big chunk of Cyberpunk's
not really, because I believe the Outer Worlds is going to be short. It's going to be a short game.
No, what they know needs to happen, and when I say they, I mean Obsidian. What Obsidian knows, what they know they need to do is they need to have the Outer Worlds come out about a month and a half, which is why they're potentially looking at bumping up the release timer. They're looking at wanting to get that out before Cyberpunk 2077 comes out. They know that they need to do this. Now, they know that they can't put out a bad game that's unpolished and broken. Obviously, that's a big no-no too. But as it stands, they understand that that one of the most important things to do right now is to get the game out for the audience, for the community before Cyberpunk 2077 comes out. Because 77 is a game that you're going to be able to sink like 700, 800 hours in, and that the players that do that are the players who are going to buy, who are the primary market of the people that will buy the Outer Worlds. So what they want to do is they want to have their game come out first, because their game does not have 800 hours worth of game time in it. That's stretching it considerably. It's a nice open world with a fleshed out story and whatnot, but it's not as big and it's not as fleshed out as either Red Dead or as much as Cyberpunk 2077 will be. So what this means is that they want to get it out sooner to have more people play it then, and then to be more excited to get into the next game that they create in the series. They kind of want to put this out, get people interested in it, have as many people play it as possible, and immediately go into work. If it's a big success in the first 2 months, in the first month, they'll know whether it's a success or not. If it is, then they will move full-time into developing the second in this series, most likely, if they haven't already had some kind of an agreement with Microsoft on another game that they're wanting to make. That's kind of where I'm hearing it now. There's a couple other projects that they're interested in, that they have ideas for. They're pitching a couple of them. But honestly, if the Outer Worlds really hits it big, then they'll double down and put the studio immediately working on either a major expansion or a whole new game, which has already been this is not super secret inside information. This is information that is actively on a lot of the Twitter accounts of the heads at Obsidian. They've all been saying this. There was a particular moment where one of the creators came out and he was talking about how they wanted to add mod support, they wanted to add third person, but due to the fact that they were under severe financial limitations, that they were not able to add those things, and they really wanted to, and they still want to. They're not making a stand saying, oh no, we're not allowing mods in the game anymore because we're not interested in that. They're saying we can't add mods because we don't have the time and the resources to develop that, the technology to add that, and so it's best if it comes out with a new title, a couple of years down the road, than if we were to add it a year and a half to 2 years from now-ish. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of where it's kind of where they are at the moment. So they want to get this game out beforehand, because if not, then what happens is this. So the Outer Worlds comes out shortly thereafter, after Cyberpunk 27. This is another potential thing. So if it comes out about a week or two afterwards, or within the same weekend, or within the same short time period as Cyberpunk 2077, like a couple days beforehand or whatever, what you'll end up have happened is that a lot of people will go to the bigger title first. So they're going to go to Cyberpunk 2077, and they'll play that until they're done with it, in which case they will then turn and look at picking up the Outer Worlds. It's on their list, right? Now, about 20 to 30% of these people won't get to the Outer Worlds period because they just don't have the time, and something else newer has come along that everybody's raving about, or the new consoles have come out, or something will get in the way of them buying that game. Even though it's on their list, this happens. We know this happens. We have charts and accounting information and analytics for years and years and years that show that this is the case. Of the remaining percentage, you'll have about half of them will wait until sale, pick up the game on a sale, and then play it through. and then you'll have that other half will immediately get the game as soon as they're done with it, because they rank their priority in the list of like genre and style, and that's the second one on their list. So that's more or less the scenario that they're looking at. If they follow that scenario and they release it within the same time period, they might get just as much critical acclaim, they might get just as many high rankings, but they will not make as many sales as they would have made if they had been able to release it a good month ahead of time. If they're able to release it over a month or 2 months ahead of time, even though this might put them into a little bit more of the outside of the best season, it's better to it's like movies, movies and games. There's lots of good examples where a movie or game did really, really well because it released in a weekend where there was nothing going on. Then when they released a movie that was a really good movie, or a decently good movie, it wasn't a terrible movie, but it didn't even make up the budget because it got released against something huge. Now, a good example of this recently was, I think, Mortal Engines. Mortal Engines released up against like Aquaman, or no, it didn't release up against Aquaman. It released up against something that, and it really didn't have the motivation.
Spider-Man Multiverse.
Oh yeah, that was it. I knew it was a comics book movie, something. But yeah, that came out, and they came out at the same time, and most people were like, "Well, I can only pick one because I only have time to see one of these things. Which one of these things am I going to see?" And they picked the one that's not you, and you don't want that to ever happen. So I'm sorry, I'm getting a little technical, and I'm trying to put it into words that everybody can understand.
No, it makes sense. Like if it's more competition there is, the less you're going to lose people to that other product regardless.
Yes. Yeah. For example, let's just use this as a quick example. Would God of War won Game of the Year if it released after or in the same week as Red Dead Redemption 2? And my immediate answer to that is I really don't think so. I really don't think so. I think they won Game of the Year because they released it early in the series, and that it just so happened to just nail it out of the park in that quieter time of the year than trying to go up against Red Dead at the end of the year. And I think that was a very good move on them, and that they did an immaculate job on that. On that perspective of getting it out at that point instead of getting in trouble and causing issues and stuff.
Right.
So
the best scenario for
part of waking up is Folgers in your cup. Sorry.
That was random.
That was the music intermission.
So the best scenario for The Outer Worlds would be for it to come out a month or two ahead of Cyberpunk 2077.
Yes,
or
100%. They really need to get this game out before Cyberpunk, and they're up against a wall here because this game is designed for current consoles. It is not designed. It can definitely go on the next gen consoles, but if they wait and they have to delay it to next year, that's not going to go over very well with the fans, because the fans at this point really hate delays. They really, 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 really hate delays. There are. I mean, we kind of got this. We have never at one point said, and I've gone on record saying multiple times, that Anthem cannot be delayed anymore. I was saying this about 6-7 months ago. Anthem cannot be delayed anymore. This is they have to release it in February. They have no choice. And there have been comments of people criticizing me for saying, "Oh, the game's going to be delayed." I'm like, no, I've never said that. I was always the one against saying that. In fact, again, there's several YouTubers that we know, and I warned them. I said, do not hop on this bandwagon that Anthem is coming out later, because it's going to be delayed for a third or fourth time, and it's not going to come out in February 2019. It's going to come out, March November or fall or sometime later, or 2020. There was lots of people saying, "Oh no, for sure this game is definitely going to be delayed again." I kept saying, no, do not believe it. That's not true. It is absolutely, they're up against a wall. It has to release February of this year, period. In fact, it was delayed previously, not due to the fact that it wasn't ready. It was delayed previously because they didn't want to put it out in 2018's fall window because it was really, really crowded. And EA had one of their other games they had the Battlefield game that was coming out at the same time. So, there is a wall for 2019 to 2020 in there, potentially console releases sometime within the next 24 months, basically, that create this hard wall where some games, and Outer Worlds is one of them, Cyberpunk is not. Cyberpunk can release after the new consoles come out if they really want it to. That is totally up to them. They not only have the finances for it, they have the trust of the community as well. If tomorrow, CDPR came out and said, "Hey, we're pushing Cyberpunk to be a launch title on the new consoles," everybody would say, "Cool," right? There would be very few people who would be really upset about that. There's some people who say
there's always people who are upset.
There's always people who are upset about it. But overall, I'm saying that as a majority, most people would not find that as a point of contention as much as you would have with say the Outer Worlds. If the Outer Worlds was to say after all this stuff that they've had, and after saying they would have a large amount of people saying, no, it's okay, you delay it, we trust you. But why they can't do that is because of finances.
They got to make their money back on this. Now,
yes,
they do. And they're in a better position.
Oh yes, they're in a way better position. However, this is one of these things where if they don't want to, which is the other side of this coin, is a little bit is the finances. The other little bit of it is the fact that if they drag this and put this back into development, that they run the risk of getting into development hell, and that's not what they want to do. On top of the fact that the financing for the Outer Worlds and the financing for the studio, there's a little bit of a separation here, and there's a whole bunch of legal jargon that's going to go into this. So again, bear with me. I'm going to try and make sense of this as much as I possibly can. Right now, there has been some stipulation within the IPs that Obsidian has already created that they didn't sign over to Microsoft lock, stock, and barrel. Okay. So Microsoft bought Obsidian Studios. They did not buy all of the rights flat out for all of their games. So what this means is that Obsidian has retained the right to some of their IPs within certain situations and circumstances that Microsoft did not straight out buy. So what this means is that the studio has the right to be able to buy itself back from the company and not have to buy the IPs back as well. So, as a quick example, EA owns Dragon Age and Mass Effect 100%.
Right, when they bought BioWare.
If BioWare were to try and buy themselves out of the deal that they made with Microsoft, they would have to buy the IPs back as well as their own freedom. So it's so you're walking away from the company. You're saying we're moving the studio back to private ownership. We have to pool this money. Here's all this money that we've made over the past few years. Maybe the employees get in and buy in private shares of the company and rights to profit sharing, et cetera, et cetera. Here is the money. This does not mean that they can walk away with the IPs that they helped create. That is not the case. So when people talk about BioWare getting free of EA, what they don't understand is that right now the IPs that they have for both Dragon Age and Mass Effect is owned by EA. Lock, stock, and barrel. 100%. They have to buy those IPs back, which right now EA can say, okay, $5 billion because we think that's what Mass Effect is worth. Mm-hmm. And a small studio is not going to be able to raise $5 billion. Like BioWare, BioWare Edmonton is not going to be able to raise $5 billion to buy back their IP on top of buying back their freedom. Right. It's just not going to work.
But Obsidian, on the other hand, they retained the rights to their IPs. So
Obsidian did not, and I don't have a list. All I know is that some of their IPs were not bought out by Microsoft. They retain the right to make games, publish those games, and potentially go say, hey, Microsoft, we have this Pillars of Eternity game series. We've had 2 games that have been pretty darn successful considering what they are. We want to bring this into, say, like a full 3D world, really flesh out, make it a classic RPG as much as it is, but we want to separate the we want to make it 3D, but we don't want to make it just another action game. We want to make it an actual, like, true classic, fully 3D, full, like, character control, all this kind of cool stuff. Now, you don't own it, but if you're willing to help fund us, we can guarantee more of this or that, or more access to some of the rights for the IP, or maybe you want the marketing rights for some of the for some, like, some, like, T-shirts or hoodies, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Basically, Microsoft needs to work out a deal or get the permission of Obsidian to do anything with some of those IPs. Whereas if they owned the IP, they could just take that and give it to some other studio or develop a game based on that themselves. But Obsidian has retained control over some of the IPs, despite being
some
owned
of their
by
IPs.
Microsoft.
Yes.
So
So what this means is that the Outer Worlds right now, as far as I have been made aware of, is not 100% owned by Microsoft. Microsoft is there. This is going, and this is why this release is really important, because if Obsidian releases this game and it does bonker numbers, it does amazingly well, that is going to make them as an entity within Microsoft Studios that is much, much more powerful than if they had signed over all the rights to the Outer Worlds and then released the game. So there's this really, it's very good, it's very clever. It's, I think, why we saw a bit of a delay in the announcement that Microsoft had bought them out, when we kind of had heard that this was in the works. And I honestly think that they had been approached quite a while ago, and I think they knew it, but I think they wanted to work out the situation that they have, which is releasing the Outer Worlds after having joined up with Microsoft, but Microsoft does not own the Outer Worlds.
Right.
They're working through this which is why there's a money component to this, because as much as the fact that they have unlimited funding now from Microsoft, they don't have unlimited funding from Microsoft to immediately start working on the Outer Worlds. In that respect, but that's why the better that the Outer Worlds does on its first initial release means that the more higher of a success rate that the next Outer Worlds can have, because they can go to Microsoft and they can say, look at how good this has become. We need some more money to make this happen, and by doing so, we'll cut you into the IP, or however they're going to work that out. It's very complicated. I know I've done a horrible job explaining it.
No, I think it makes sense. It makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely it's not a simple thing, because a lot of this is lawyer speak and planning, which I'm not a lawyer. I have a pretty decent understanding of how this stuff works, but I'm not professional, so I might even be missing one or two key things here. And really, you need somebody who's both an expert in law, who's an expert in the deal that they've cut, to, I think, maybe clarify it a little bit better. And such a person does not exist who is willing to speak about it at the moment. So I'm trying to put it in the best terms that you guys can understand, to understand, okay, this game has to release, the Outer Worlds has to release this year, period. And that the better it does, the stronger this will make the studio within the confines of being a Microsoft studio will be. This will, if it goes bonkers and makes Game of the Year and is one of the best-selling games of the year, this will make them the next big powerhouse within Microsoft Studios. This will make them the favored studio of the family studio of Microsoft, and it will give them an impressive amount of self-control and anonymity if it does poorly by, say, releasing in a crowded window and not selling as many copies as they would want to sell, if that is the case, they will still be a valued company within the confines, but they'll not be given as much anonymity as they would want to have. So does that make sense? If I kind of laid it out in the way that it makes...
Yeah, no, you've made a lot of sense. So the bottom line is it needs to do really well. It needs to come out before Cyberpunk 2077 in order to do really well, and that's going to be there's going to be a lot of pressure on them if Cyberpunk 2077 is also releasing this year, which, I mean, is not a guarantee, but there are a lot of indications. And we haven't even discussed any of the other games that are coming out this year. You know, not in the same release window, but in terms of what could be on deck for Game of the Year, we've got Kingdom Hearts 3, we've got Metro Exodus coming. I mean, there is Anthem, but, you know, who knows? They may surprise us. Division 2, and then there's also Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice, which looks like it's going to be really, really interesting. But there's the bottom line. We're coming up against the clock, so we've got to wrap it up pretty quickly.
Mad Queen had to duck out. She had to go. So thanks for her coming by. Yes, we're over time again today, and I really hope that I explained that well enough. We'll try and maybe clip that out and put that out as a separate video segment down the road here. But that is why Cyberpunk versus the Outer Worlds, why this is a relevant discussion, as well as these are not two studios that hate each other. These are two studios that I think the entire gaming community wants to see nothing but success about. So,
right.
Yeah.
All right.
I will be buying multiple copies of the Outer Worlds too, and I will be giving them away to friends. So this is thank you, Captain C in the chat. That is a brilliant idea. Buy more than one copy, give it away. 100% agree with you. Yeah.
All right, fantastic. There's been some excellent discussion in the chat. I mean, the chat's just been going crazy. It's been about 5 times more than we normally get on a normal podcast day. And so we really appreciate seeing that. A lot of it was not directed at us. A lot of it was all of you folks sort of just talking amongst yourselves, and so that's fantastic. We love seeing that. And if you want to keep the conversation going after the live broadcast, be sure to join our Discord server. You can find the link in the description below. It's a place where you can chat with us and with other Triple S fans about all the things we love to talk about. Stay up to date about everything we're doing here at the Triple S League. Click the link below to join, and be sure to say hi to us in the welcome channel. Thank you, everybody, for supporting the show. Before you close that tab, and before you close your YouTube app, be sure to slam that like button. It likes it rough, and that really helps us out a lot. I also want to thank our Patreon supporters, Old Man Manson, and our 2 anonymous supporters. Don't forget to like and sub if you appreciate this bi-weekly content. If you're listening after the fact on SoundCloud, we thank you for your follows and likes on iTunes. Thank you for subscribing and reviewing our show. And feel free to join us on Friday at noon Pacific Time, 3 p.m. Eastern Time, for the live show where you can interact with us and other listeners and be a part of the fantastic discussion that happens here. The Augmented Reality Podcast is a presentation of the Triple S League. Check out our YouTube channel for game guides, reviews, comedy, news updates, and tons more quality gaming content. And let us know on Discord what you want us to cover. We're always open to suggestions. My name is Asheninity, and on behalf of Subsidian, thank you so much for listening. We'll talk to you on Friday.